Hi everyone, welcome back to Summer Lane Zoo. My name is Tyler and today we are building the second habitat in this zoo. Today's habitat is for the red river hog and we're building in the tropical section of the zoo again. The first build, if you missed it, was the Babirusa habitat, which is directly across from the Red River Hog. And I wanted to, with this section of the zoo, start with a few animals that were really similar. So, Red River Hog, we've got that directly across from the Babirusa. And I'm also going to be building for the Warthog in a future episode right down the path as well. So, starting off here, I like to start my habitats off by laying the barriers, starting off with the actual walls, using a lot of the similar pieces that I used in the habitat directly across. So glass walls, concrete, and the mud barriers as well. But I'm really excited that they finally added the Red River Hog into Planet Zoo. When I first picked up the game, I was a little surprised they weren't added in. I didn't research the animal roster all too well before I actually bought the game, and so when I finally loaded it for the first time and I looked through all the animals, I was surprised that the Red River Hog didn't make the cut, at least initially. I've seen them in so many different zoos, so I was surprised they weren't added, but we finally got them this year, and I built a habitat for them in another zoo before, a multi-species habitat, but today they're just going to be on their own, living their best Red River Hog lives. So starting here, one of the things that I've been doing recently is laying down the enrichment that the animals are going to use all over the habitat on pretty much every corner and every nook and cranny so that the animals actually traverse the entire habitat. In the past, and like when I started playing, I would make these huge habitats. They'd be really pretty and they'd have so much dense plant cover, the animals, one, couldn't navigate them entirely, so I learned from that, but they'd also wouldn't utilize the entire habitat. So I've learned from that mistake, and I placed down the enrichment that I want them to use first, and then that way when everything is done, they'll actually go throughout the entire habitat. So I don't add too much in my sandbox zoos, I just kind of keep it a little more minimal. So here we added the mud bath and the scratching post. I think that was it. I don't think I added anything at the end, but that's what I started with. So right here, I've started work on where they're going to be sleeping. So the building side of Planet Zoo is one that I am constantly learning, and I kind of have a struggle with it. It's not something that comes naturally to me. I much prefer the building and addition of plants and rocks and making things look natural, but the actual buildings are really challenging for me. So I've learned a few things over the years, and I hope to keep learning from other YouTubers and seeing what strategies they use. But this building, I wanted to be really similar to the structure that the Babirusas were sleeping in. So I used all of the same materials, same stone walls. I eventually add the conservation planks on the outside for some texture, similar elements on the roof, and just kind of keep it minimal. And working on backstage areas and buildings is something I'm going to really try to push, that I continue developing my skill set for this zoo and future zoos. So hopefully those skills get improved as you keep watching Summer Lane Zoo series. But for now, the building that I ended up creating, I was pleased with it. I got a lot of inspiration for this building from just doing Google searches and going on Pinterest and Instagram and looking at zoos and seeing where they keep some of their animals. So that's kind of where I got the inspiration for this style of building. But back to the Red River Hogs, I'm really glad they finally added them into the game. I built a habitat for them with bongos, the antelope, in another zoo, and I thought about including bongos with them here, but bongos are a little they're much more shy, so I thought they wouldn't be a good fit at the beginning of the zoo with all the guests and the noise and the crowds. So I think I will add the bongos later on in the tropical section of the zoo, just because they're one of my favorites. And yeah, I was thinking if I should add them here or not, but ultimately decided to just keep it Red River hogs on their own. Like every time I go to build a habitat, I typically start with the rocks. Well, start with the habitat walls, then add lots of rocks, and then I go in by adding plants. And what I've done here is in this habitat and the others that I will be doing for the tropical section is I'll create my first habitat, so in this case the babirusa, and I'll just pull a lot of the plants from their habitat into this one. So that way it creates a kind of cohesive style and look, and everything just flows. But one of the things I'm doing right here is I created a group with the buffalo grass, a couple of different color variations here, but I saw this from, I can't remember who showed me this tip, but you group them and then you can lower them as a group so that way they're not resting on the surface. One of the issues with the buffalo grass for me is that when I place it down, even if it's aligned to the surface, it almost looks like it's hovering. So if you start to place them and then group them, you can sync them all just a little bit, and it makes all the difference for the look for your habitats. So I've been doing that recently and it's made all the difference. Like the other habitat across the way, pulling lots of ferns, lots of palms, and kind of all my favorite plants. Every time there's a new DLC or free update with the plants that are added there, I'm always blown away with the quality that gets added, and I feel like with every DLC it adds some of my favorite new plants. So I'm building here with a lot of the plants that were added in the tropical pack, and I've started to explore a lot of the plants that were added in the Oceania pack, which, speaking of, is one of the greatest DLCs in my opinion. I think the animal selection was fabulous, the theming was wonderful, and I'm also one of the players that really likes the scenarios. I play those as soon as they come out. I like the challenge, and I do like the elements of running a zoo where you have to have your guests and staff and animals actually happy and not just in sandbox mode. So I loved that level they added too. If you haven't played it for yourself, you should check it out if that's something you're interested in. But yeah, the Oceania pack was absolutely fabulous. But back to this zoo, I've challenged myself recently to just add a little bit more natural water and fewer of the bowls that the animals drink from. So water elements is another thing that I'm trying to continue to improve upon. So anyway, added a small pool in the back there so there's a little bit more privacy for the Red River hogs. The last thing here that I'm doing is just adding a few details to the outside of the habitat. Added the sign that the Red River hog received. I think the art style that they've been adding for the animals in the DLCs recently has been absolutely incredible, and so I thought it'd be a perfect addition for this one. And then, like all of the you'll see in a lot of future episodes, I like to add lots of plantings outside to kind of create a little bit of a separation, even if there's habitats directly across from one another. So just added a few final details there, adding a couple of donation boxes, and something that I've been obsessed with recently is just adding lots and lots of the sound, the ambient speakers everywhere, and just when I am playing in the game myself and the sound is on, it just sounds wonderful. So I think, I can't remember which sound that I ended up going with, but there's so many different options, and yeah, I've just been obsessed with that when I'm actually playing in game. But this habitat, I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I think it's going to be a really inviting section for the zoo as guests start to come in and funnel, and they get to decide which way they want to go. This kind of entrance to the tropical section, I'm really pleased with how it turned out. And yeah, I guess the last thing here is just a couple of clips of the Red River hogs moving through their habitat. And yeah, hopefully you'll join me for the next episode where I will be building for the warthog down the path a little farther into the tropical section.